We're going to, there we go. Got the recording going, got all the tech stuff done.
Good job.
Good job. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Mona. How are you both?
Good. How are you?
So good.
Good. We were talking in the little waiting room, and I'll give Facebook just a minute or two to let everybody know that we're here and that we're live. But I got to see Mona back in July. She was out here working on her new one coming maybe next year-ish.
Yep.
Shh.
Oh. Don't tell anyone. It's a secret. Yeah.
But it's always so great to have you, and we're so glad that you're back. It's the paperback release. And Jennifer, I think you have the copy of the new cover, don't you?
Wah, wah, wah.
There it is. Got a new cover. That's actually the cover of was it the British edition?
The Canadian
Canadian.
one. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I love the American, but I do love this. I think this is really good.
Yeah. I like them both too. It's hard. The other one's a little darker, I'd say. Right?
Yeah. But this is good. So we're glad to have you back. So for those of you that are joining us live on Facebook, we've been doing this a long time, so I think you know the drill, but just in case you don't, Warwick's located in San Diego. I'm going to put in the chat how to order Mona's new book. So if you're here in San Diego, we'd love for you to come by the store and pick it up. Otherwise, we can ship that to you. Or and then also in that chat box, if you have any questions, Mona and Jennifer are going to chat for about 30 minutes. If you've got any questions, go ahead and pop those into the comment section, and I'll bring those into them after they're done with their conversation. If you're watching this on YouTube later, we are not live with you, so we won't be able to answer any live questions, but stick around because it's going to be a great conversation. So with that, we'll get the show on the road. So Jeniffer Thompson is a personal branding expert, digital marketing strategist, and publishing consultant. She is an author and speaker who delivers strategy-rich content and actionable tools that educate and empower authors. She co-founded Monkey See Media in 2004, an award-winning book cover and website design house. She is also co-host of the Premise podcast, which this will be on at some point in the future, co-founder of the San Diego Writers Festival, and serves on the board of the San Diego Memoir Writers Association. With that, ladies, have a great conversation. Can't wait. And we'll see you in a little bit.
Thank you, Julie. Hi, Mona. It's so good to see you. I love your work. I love this book. It's wonderful. Congratulations on all of its success. So I'm going to read your bio, and then we'll have you read a little bit if you'd like.
Yeah,
Would you like to do? Perfect. And then we'll dive in.
Okay, that sounds perfect.
Mona Awad is the author of Bunny, named a best book of 2019 by Time, Vogue, and the New York Public Library. It was a finalist for the New England Book Award and a Goodreads Choice Award. It is currently in development for film with Jenny Connor and New Regency Productions. Awad's first novel, 13 Ways of Looking at a Fat Girl, was a finalist for the Scotiabank Giller Prize and winner of the Colorado Book Award and the Amazon Canada First Novel Award. Her writing has appeared in the New York Times Magazine, Vogue, Time, McSweeney's. By the way, I read that article, or your latest piece from 2020, and it was awesome. I would highly recommend people go read that piece. Plowshares and elsewhere. She teaches fiction in the creative writing program at Syracuse University. Her new novel, All's Well, has been named a best or most anticipated book of summer by Entertainment Weekly, O Magazine, Goodreads, and many more. And it's a lovely book, and I'm so excited to talk about it.
Oh, thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you so much, Warwick's, for hosting us. And so excited to be in conversation with you. And Warwick's is very near and dear to my heart because I actually wrote this book and my forthcoming book, and edited Bunny too in La Jolla. So La Jolla is a very special place to me, and Warwick's has always been really wonderfully supportive. And of course, I love Julie, so just really happy to be here. So I'm gonna read from the very, very opening, just very, very brief little taste, just to kind of set the tone. And it's about a theater professor named Miranda Fitch. She works at a New England college, and she is a director as well. and she is suffering from chronic pain that no one believes she has. And she's hell-bent on staging this student production of Shakespeare's All's Well That Ends Well. But her students are mutinous, and they want Macbeth. And tragedy and comedy both ensue. In this opening
Yes, it
scene,
does.
yeah. In this opening scene, she is in her office. She's just about to go downstairs to meet her mutinous students, and she's feeling all the feelings. I'm lying on the floor watching against my will a bad actress in a drug commercial tell me about her fake pain. Just because my pain is invisible, she pleads to the camera, doesn't mean it isn't real. And then she attempts a face of what I presume to be her invisible suffering. Her brow furrows as though she's about to take a difficult shit, or else have a furious but forgettable orgasm. Her mouth is a thin grimace. Her dim eyes attempt to accuse something vague in the distance, a god perhaps. Her bloodless complexion is convincing, though they probably achieved this with makeup and lighting. You can do a lot with makeup and lighting, I have learned. Now I watch her rub her shoulder where this invisible pain supposedly lives. Her face says that clearly her rubbing has done nothing. Her pain is still there, of course, deep, deep inside her. And then I am shown how deep. I am shown her supposed insides. A see-through human body appears on my laptop screen, showcasing a central nervous system that looks like a network of angry red webs. The webs blink on and off like Christmas lights because the nerves are overactive, apparently. This is why she suffers so. Now the camera cuts back to the woman, gray-faced, hunched in the front yard of her suburban home. Her blonde children clamor around her like little jumping demons. They're oblivious to her suffering, to the red webs of pain inside her. She looks imploringly at the camera, at me, really, for this is a targeted ad based on all of my web searches, based on my keywords, the ones I typed into Google in the days when I was still diagnosing myself. She looks withered but desperate, pleading. She wants something from me. She is asking me to believe her about her pain. I don't, of course. I'll stop there.
Wow, you just brought me back in. I'm like, keep going. Those angry red webs, they appear throughout the book. And the callback was so brilliant, how you've woven a story. Of course, that's what storytelling is. But then the visuals coming back again and again with that angry red web was so powerful. This book is about a lot of things. I call it a Macbeth adaptation.
That's great. I love that.
I would say it's Kenneth Branagh meets David Lynch if they were to have a book baby. Absolutely. What'd you say?
Oh, I said that's a great compliment. Yeah.
Well, the David Lynch pieces for me, like that was like the best part, we have the best of Shakespeare and then the best of this like creepy but yet beautiful landscape that you've created with these characters, and they're so rich and so deep, and there's so much pain and there's so much humor. I want to talk about where the story came from. Like, when did it slowly percolate, or was it like, oh, I have an idea? Tell us about the kernel.
Yeah. I think it kind of came from two places, and it did sort of slowly percolate. Really, it was partly inspired by my own experiences with chronic pain. I suffered from chronic pain for a number of years. I still deal with chronic pain even today. But at the time that I was dealing with this, it was a few years ago now. It was really, really kind of shaping my days. It wasn't a life-threatening thing, of course, but at least in my case, but it was still impacting my daily function, my ability to move, my ability to work, socialize. I couldn't drive, I couldn't stand, I couldn't sit, just one of those, I was in endless limbo in terms of what my options were for relief. And so I was dealing with this. And at the time I was also a graduate student, and I was a graduate student in creative writing and also in literary studies at the University of Denver. And I took a Shakespeare class. And I just got so, it just, because of where I was in my life, I think, I got completely lost in the plays, just completely immersed myself in Shakespeare's worlds. And I just developed this really intense attachment to All's Well That Ends Well, which no one else likes. But that's just the way it goes. I just really loved this play, and I love this character. She was so polarizing, the main character of this comedy by Shakespeare, and I started seeing parallels with Macbeth that really excited me. And yeah, that's kind of where it came from, I think.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of Helen, I mean, do you think that you wanted to write something, a character like Helen, because she's so polarizing? Like, was that so exciting to you to create a character that, for me as a reader, one minute I love her and the next minute I hate her, right?
Yes.
And those are very Shakespearean actors in general, right? But do you think that's what sort of drew you into writing about this?
Yeah, it really did. I mean, I just found her so fascinating. She is so polarizing, and in that way, she is very Shakespearean. Because so many of Shakespeare's heroes and anti-heroes have that kind of relationship with their audiences. There are moments where you just feel profound disgust, and
Yeah, totally.
and loathing, and suddenly you're really alienated from somebody that a moment ago you actually
You
felt,
loved.
yeah, you loved. And I love how the characters in the plays are able to kind of elicit that sort of response in an audience that is very, very conflicted. I love characters
Yeah.
inspire that. So yeah, I think that's really where it came from, was just the kinds of emotions that this character inspired, and that I thought were very similar to emotions that you might feel about somebody like Macbeth or Lady Macbeth.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah, she's descending into madness, really. I mean,
Yeah,
we're watching her come together, maybe to the world, but really she's unraveling.
yeah, no, she totally is. And that again, that's like to kind of have her um, able to connect with the reader at the same time. I just really, really leaned into the fact that she was a performer who, no longer has the stage. And so, her story is really being addressed. In my head, I always imagined her sort of addressing it to this invisible audience. Nobody else is listening. So she's, as this, former performer who is now, injured and can't be on stage and isn't really being listened to or even seen.
Yeah.
Her story that she can share is all that she's got. And so yeah, I really imagined an invisible audience that she was speaking to, who would sympathize when she felt,
Yeah.
like oppressed, and who would root for her. But then, of course, I think the reader is encouraged in this book, at least I hope, to kind of feel conflicted about Miranda, for sure.
Well, we're starting to realize, like, oh, she's so delusional.
Oh, yeah.
Like she makes excuses for her behavior and justifies things that she's doing because of this and this. And then as the reader, we start to see her slowly slip away from any moral compass that she might have had in the beginning, because it's justifying everything. And speaking of the invisible audience, in the end, toward the end, and I won't give anything away to our readers and listeners, but there is this thing that you did, and I don't know if you did it on purpose, but the audience laughs at all the inappropriate times. And it sort of reminded me of and made me wonder, was this a commentary on how we treat women and how we treat the invisible illness? Because when you have chronic pain that, it's not a broken arm, you can't point to it and say, oh, her arm's broken. Was that scene intended to create that sort of feeling of being laughed at and not being believed and all the wrong moments? Like the audience is evil, really.
Oh yeah, they're very evil. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, part of what really inspired this book was sort of looking around, when I was dealing with pain and was, trying to find relief, trying to find somebody who could help me, um, and just really having my experience kind of dismissed or diminished, or just like band-aids, in the form of just pills or whatever. It really felt like I wasn't really being believed or being taken seriously. And it is hard with pain. It's so hard with pain because it is invisible, and you do have to rely on the person experiencing it to communicate it. So, I had to rely on myself. And when you are in pain, it's actually quite hard to communicate that. So that's where a lot of the kind of dark humor in the book, I think, comes from. It's just her trying to articulate this thing that is very, very hard to articulate, and particularly under her circumstances. And then, being a woman, I just think that already it's like, she's that alone undermines her, whatever she's going to say. So she's being hampered by pain, and she's being hampered by just, being in her body and trying to articulate her experience.
I wondered, there were times in the book where I started to wonder, maybe she didn't really fall off the stage. Maybe that is a metaphor for falling off the stage, as in no longer being a performer. Not necessarily getting fired, but maybe not getting more gigs or acting opportunities. And did you purposely create this tension? So as a reader, was she in pain? Is this real? Is she making it up?
Well, I think that's the thing with pain, is that it's just you experiencing it. It's just your reality. So as somebody who's interested in horror, that is kind of the whole fundamental crux of horror, is it's all in your head, or it really happened. Which one is it? Well, horror likes to dance between the two, so you're never quite sure, and that's what makes it horrifying. And so pain really does put you in that situation, because you are alone in your experience. And there's nobody who can really fully validate it for you and say, oh, yes, I'm experiencing this too, exactly like this. It's only you. So that's a really horrifying, when you think about it, that's actually a very horrifying experience. And it's very surreal, because it's just you, and you can't help but second guess yourself, especially when you can't articulate it quite right. Like, you'll never capture pain in words. You can only approximate. And so that alone makes it feel like oh, am I faking it? Did I represent that accurately? I probably didn't, but that's the best I have. And is this person going to believe me? Are they going to help me? Or are they just, are they not? It's all in their hands. So I think it's a very powerless position, regardless of the kind of pain that it is. It's very isolating and
depressing, and
but it can be funny too.
Well, I mean, that's how we deal with things that are difficult, is we laugh about them, or we make jokes about them, and that humanizes us, I think.
I think so too.
Was writing this book cathartic for you?
Yeah, it really was. I've talked about this before, but it's something that I tend to do when I write a story. I usually am inspired to write when I either experience or observe a moment of really profound powerlessness. And then there's something about creativity, fiction making for me, that gives me a kind of agency and a sense of excitement and a sense of being alive, and to actually go right into that powerlessness and try to give it expression in the realm of fiction. It would never work to do it in memoir for me, but in fiction I can tell the truth, and in a way that I just can't in other forms. So yeah, I think so. I think it was extremely cathartic, and it wasn't just my experience. It was seeing people like me, or worse off, in the same waiting rooms and in the same, physical therapy gyms and stuff, just feeling, I think, things that I was feeling, scared and just, uncertain and frustrated and angry and all of these things,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing about is it your back or your hip, and and it's
Exactly.
both, just like this exasperation, like, oh my God. One of the things I think I loved, and by the way, I've had chronic pain and I do suffer from hip and back pain.
Oh, wow.
So I totally related to Miranda as I was reading it, and it's been sort of a journey from when I turned 30, actually. The day I rolled out of bed on my 30th birthday, I suddenly had total back pain and I couldn't
Oh,
identify where it was coming from. And I was to all these doctors and acupuncturists and all of it. What I
yeah.
loved was how the names you gave these physical therapists. So we've got Broface Mark,
Yes.
Todd. Talk to us about your naming conventions for these physical therapists, these doctors.
Yeah. I mean, it's terrible of me in a way. They are,
No, it's
there are so many physical therapists that are great and have different kinds of names. And it's not just like these like monosyllabic like men with crew cuts, but it is in my nightmares. And so
I'm sure.
yeah, so why not do it? And yeah, I mean, I wanted to give them like some kind of like biblical cred, and so yeah, so I had
Very Matthew, Mark, yeah.
yeah, because
Yeah.
there's some magical thinking going on there when, at least for me anyway, when I was in pain, and there's definitely like a sense
Mm.
of being subordinate, like for sure, and that this person has a power that it really does feel magical, and there's also something moral about it too, like you're the bad,
Mm.
you're the good one, and
Hmm.
you've got to be a good patient, and if you're a good patient, then you'll get better, and if you're not a good patient,
Mm.
you question, you don't have faith, there's also faith in there too, then well, that's why you're floundering, that's why you're still in pain,
Mm.
good, and you didn't have faith and you didn't believe, and there's all of
Yeah.
that, I think, wrapped up in the way that at least I think, from the conversations I overheard, from the conversations I had too, that's all wrapped up in the dialogue between, I think, a therapist and a patient. There's
Hmm.
something very insidiously religious about it, about like, you need to have faith in, in me and in your ability to recover and all this stuff. Well, what if you don't? What if, it was a really hard day and you don't feel like you're getting better and you can't ask questions about that? That's like, suddenly you're a bad patient if you ask questions. Yeah, there's something to that I thought was really kind of
Mm.
more awful, and I really wanted to tap into it to make it more, to really just lean into the horror of it, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and that idea that you're not doing it right, you're not getting better, it's your fault. It's not that my exercises aren't, good.
It's not
It's
that I'm,
that you didn't do them right or enough. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So I read Bunny as well, which I love.
Oh,
And in both of these books, our heroine has just a small fling with a Scottish man. So I have to ask you, where does this come from? Where's the Scottish man from in your life?
oh, I think where's he from?
Wait,
Well, I guess in All's Well, it comes from the engagement with Macbeth, of course, and
mhm.
the man that we're talking about, the hot bartender guy. He is. I always imagined him to play kind of two roles. He's kind of the porter in Macbeth for
Mm.
this book,
Mhm.
you know
Mhm.
and he's embodying the three men, but it's sort of her, I think, choosing, like she's going into that world now. We're watching her. She's got all's well that ends well on stage, and she gets to have that because you know
Yeah.
that's what she gets because she wanted that so badly. But off stage, she is living Macbeth, and that moment
Right.
of meeting the Scotsman is really part of her kind of walking definitively through that door into the world of Macbeth.
Mhm.
Um,
And
so yeah, there's even a tattoo on his arm that's like a line from the porter in Macbeth.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many lines that you throw in there that you're giving us all of these clues. And I'll be honest, I didn't realize it until I met the witches.
Oh
And then
yeah.
I was like, oh, I see what's happening, and the crows and like there's so many the sonnets and the pieces of soliloquies that appear just in the language and the dialogue in the book is so brilliant. I have to ask rather, how much research did you do on these two plays to bring this together so beautifully?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. It was fun, but in the end, but it was very, very
Mhm.
scary at first. In
Mm.
in a sense, though, I have to say, I always saw a parallel between All's Well and Macbeth. So in All's Well That Ends Well, Helen, the main character, um, she she does something very similar to Macbeth in the grander scheme, which is that she is powerless, has a desire that is unfulfillable at the start of the play, and then
Mm.
she circumnavigates the natural order of things in order to get what she wants. And in order to get what she wants, she heals a king, right? She heals a king and
Right.
gets what she wants. In Macbeth, Macbeth also has a desire that is unfulfilled at the start of the play. He kills a king in order to make it manifest. He also circumnavigates the natural order of things in order to do that. So yeah, I always thought ultimately it's the same trajectory. It's just that one goes down the road of comedy, and there's a weird, kind of marriage at the end of it, like this very disturbing fairy tale happy ending. And then the other one goes down the road of like profound, violent tragedy. So I thought, how perfect! Ultimately it's the same journey. It's just there's a fork in the path, and one goes down comedy and one goes down tragedy. So I just have to be aware of that. And
Mm.
so the stage is where the happy ending is, and
Yeah.
the tragedy is off stage. It's in the world that Miranda is living. That's the world of Macbeth. It's that world. So I knew that dividing kind of line.
Right.
And then I kind of had to bring them together at the end. And that was the tricky part, was kind of
Mm.
them together, because I wanted a little bit of Macbeth and I also wanted
A
a
little
little bit
bit of,
of well, of course, right?
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but
I
it was
would
fun. It was fun to
did
hear.
did you have like a Shakespearean expert like read it to like make sure you got things right, or did you feel pretty confident that like, okay, I got it?
One of my closest friends is a theater studies professor, and she loves Shakespeare and is just brilliant. And I did give it to her to read, and obviously was really interested in her thoughts. I mean, I I dedicated Bunny to her. I mean, she's been my reader since I was like 20 years old or something. But she was really helpful. Yes, absolutely.
Mm.
And but other than that, I think what I did was I tried to tap into like Shakespeare, who just is really
Yeah.
interested in kind of taking other stories and putting them together and mashing them up, and I tried to take inspiration from that, from
Hmm.
his own process of kind of weaving stories together, which he's always done. And so in that way it kind of felt like, okay, yeah, this could work, this really could. And I've just got to try to have fun. That's what I told myself. Just try to have fun and don't get into your head. Don't read a lot of criticism.
Mm.
Just
Hmm.
really pay attention to the plays, and then try to see productions and see how they're handling it. And seeing productions is so much fun, you know. So I did a
Well,
lot.
it's so well done. It's so well done. How long did it take you to write?
I think it took 2 years. Yeah, it was 2 years.
Okay.
It was fast. I mean, I've said this before, but I wrote the first draft of it in like a handful of weeks in La Jolla, actually. Uh,
Mm.
and I came in, I think, with some pages, and then I just went all the way, like with this first draft, which is what I like to do.
Nice.
I love to write that way.
Mm.
And then I went in and I just kind of layered it, and and just worked on it and revised for months after that. But I had the story. I like to kind of not second guess at least the first draft,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of get it all down. So yeah, La Jolla was a big inspiration for that. Just being by the water and lovely.
That's cool.
It's not New England, but it's by the sea, and there's something like kind of creepy about it, which I love.
About it, really?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
this I know that your next book is sort of inspired by La Jolla, so I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I want to hear more about your writing process.
Sure.
Can you write anywhere? Like, tell us about a typical day of writing for you.
A typical day, if I'm generating, usually will start in the morning, and then I'll just go for as long as I can.
Mm.
So it'll be, it could be 3 hours, it could be 5 hours, it could be 7 hours if I'm really, really lucky and have that time to give to it.
Mm.
And then, I'll usually stop for the day. But if I'm
Mm.
really on a roll and I'm really in the world of it and I know what the next scene is going to be, I might keep going.
Wow.
I've definitely had days where I could keep going, but it has to be one of those, like, moments where you kind of really know the story at that point, right? And you know what you're
Mhm.
next. That's that can be really, those days are kind of few and far between. So
Well, are you one of those people who plots all the plot points out, or do you just follow the pen and the characters and see where they take you?
yeah, I think, I mean, whenever I've done that, sort of just follow the characters, it ends up rewarding the story in ways that I just didn't anticipate. It's wonderful for making.
Mm.
So I do like to do it, and I do it, but I like to have at least some sense of the bones, just a little bit before I go in, especially for something like this where I was working with two plays, and I did want to kind of follow the arc of the plays. Um, so I felt like I needed it to have some kind of structure. Although with this book in particular, I was very lucky because I had the academic year as a spine. I had the theater production schedule as a spine, right? It starts off with
Mm.
the start
Yeah.
of rehearsals, and then we go to opening night. So I knew it was going to end on opening night. And that's not and so
Yeah,
yeah,
that
so
doesn't give it away.
that's a giveaway. But those things really helped. I mean, so much in terms of just having
Mm.
direction. In a lot of ways, the process for this book, I thought it was going to, because I was so intimidated by working with Shakespeare and working with two plays, but it turned out to be more organic than I had anticipated, for sure.
How long was the kernel of the idea in your mind to the day that you like sat down and said, "Okay, I'm going to write this book"?
How long was the kernel of the idea there? I think for a long time, I started with All's Well That Ends Well. Like, I had this
Mm.
idea that, oh, I got to write a story about a theater director who's just obsessed with All's Well That Ends Well, and has a really particular idea of how Helen should be played. And that's going to be so fun. And one day I'll write that. But then when the pain narrative started coming in, and when I started seeing Macbeth as
Mm.
another play to bring into it, that's when things got really exciting. And I think that took a long time, like maybe about a year before I put those two things together. I had it in my head, the All's Well theater director, but it was
Yeah.
it was the pain and Macbeth, bringing those two in. That's what made it into a novel, I think, that I wanted to write, that excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is the magic of it. The pain is so visceral, you can really feel it, and it relates so much to Shakespeare too, and how he creates these characters that they're filled with so much. It's so much emotion, so much pain. It was beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Just
Yeah,
so
I
well
mean,
done.
it's true. I mean, it's so interesting looking back on it now. I mean, I wasn't really thinking about my struggles with pain when I first came up with the idea. But why did I attach to All's Well? I think part of the reason must have been because one of the central characters in the play is crippled with
Mhm.
gets healed miraculously. So there's like a miraculous healing in this one play, and so that, yeah, that's very, very interesting, and beautiful. Like, I just love the idea that in this world that he created, somebody is healed, and they run around
Right,
and
right.
dance suddenly, and I mean, how amazing is that? I really tapped into that weird giddy, like, joy that the king has after he
Mhm.
recovered. Use that for Miranda, for sure. Like that kind of strange magical giddiness.
Well, and that's sort of where the David Lynch piece comes in, like you really, the cinematic descriptions of the bar, of the
Yeah,
canning man.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
And
Yeah.
which talk to us about the canning man and the title of the bar.
Yeah, it's so funny. It comes from a few different places, the bar, but definitely was named after Candyman, which is a bar in Edinburgh. I did
Mm,
live in Edinburgh for a year.
okay.
I did a master's there, in English, and it was one of my favorite bars. I think it's a little satanic. I just don't. There's nothing about it that really is. There's just something about the patrons, and there's just something about, I don't know, the atmosphere. It just is so strange to me. There's just something strange about it, something off. But it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful bar, and I loved it. And it's kind of like a long walk. Like, it's one of those. It's like a journey to get there.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and so definitely drew from that. But also in Denver, there was a bar I loved so much. It was called the Snug. Um, it's a great place, but it's really open, and I was thinking it spatially, that bar, and this other bar in Salem, which is kind of similar. Like, they're so open, they almost feel like they're theaters.
Mm.
Those definitely inspired just the way that the Candyman works in All's Well, because I really like the idea that when she gets there and she's finished with work, and she's so pissed about the students, and she's so, like, done, suddenly this other play in her regular life is opening up right around her. The bar becomes a stage, like the world of the play.
Yeah.
I knew that switch suddenly happens, and that was very exciting. Definitely
Mm.
inspired by Snug, and by it's not the best bar in Salem by far. It's called Rockefeller's. Really, it's not the best bar, but it's beautiful. Like, it's so beautiful
Mm.
inside, um, and really kind of gothic, and definitely inspired the Candyman, for sure.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Talk to us about Ellie and who Ellie represents in this book.
Yeah, Ellie is kind of, she is Helen, in the book. So this is Miranda's student, that she has this strange affection for. And Ellie's kind of an outsider, and she wants Ellie desperately to play Helen. But of course, Ellie can't play Helen because Miranda's nemesis student, Brianna, um, gets to play all the lead acting roles, and Miranda hates Brianna, and Brianna hates Miranda. It's totally mutual. And Miranda wants Ellie to be able to play Helen. That's her secret wish. And I think Ellie, yeah, she's kind of like she's a little witchy. In my mind, she's really the Helen of the novel. 'Cause
Mm. Mhm.
way that Helen is often portrayed on stage, in Shakespeare, she's like this pale, mousy, kind of like unassuming girl, but she's got this fiery core inside of her that she, like, shows to the
Mm.
audience only.
Right, right.
And so, and I really, and then she's got this really strange rapport with older people, like Helen. She's
Hmm.
got a rapport with the Countess, and then she's got a rapport with the King. They can see the strange, like, beauty of Helen, I guess. They're tender towards Helen. So I like the idea that this teacher is like, has this tenderness for Ellie, but that none of her peers can see it, but Miranda can. So I really love the idea of having like and she's witchy. Ellie is witchy. I mean, we don't really know where some of the magic in the book is coming from, and it the way that it's written, it could be her. We don't know.
Well, and I like how you kind of leave it open-ended. Like you sort of leave some questions as to, who Ellie represents to Miranda.
Right.
And I won't say any more because dear listeners and viewers, you're just gonna have to get the book and you're gonna have to read it. It's so good. So before we bring Julie back on, I have one last question.
Sure.
What is your thing with Garamond font? Do you have something against Garamond?
Oh my
Tell
God.
us more.
I actually love Garamond font, and I write in it. So I guess I'm kind of making fun of myself. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's something that sort of just gives expression to Brianna, because she writes in Garamond font and submits
in Garamond.
Yeah, exactly. It just gives expression to like teacher frustration with like a student, that they write in this particular font. Have to deal with it, but I write in
I love that, because it really did, like, I could sense like the teacher being so frustrated with the way students do things, and yet I think Garamond is such a fabulous font, and I was like, what's wrong with Garamond?
No, love it.
I'm glad to know you love it. Well, thank you so much. This book is so wonderful. It's so good. My kitties, I have new kitties, and they've been eating it, so you can see the edges of my book, little cat marks, but it doesn't hurt the cover at all. It's so good. And I love this cover. So this was the Canadian cover, huh?
Yes. Yep. It was the Canadian cover. So now it is the soft cover.
Well, it's beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Do you have the hardcover to hold up for people? I think you were reading from it, yes?
Do I? I don't have it with me right here. Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. Well, people can look it up and they can see the difference between the two covers, but it's absolutely wonderful. Is yours black? Mine's blue.
No, it's blue too. This is just actually the Canadian one. So I think the color is a little different.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful experience getting to speak with you. You're such a lovely writer, and I look forward to your next book.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you for the questions. It was great. Love talking to you as well.
Okay, I've got some like really funny questions coming in from Facebook. It's really good.
Oh, good, good.
Sometimes what happens with Facebook is that they're commenting and the questions are coming in while you were talking about other things, which I love. The one was Amanda's talking about agreeing that La Jolla does have a spooky side. And I think we might hear a little bit more of that in the next book. Maybe.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more of that. But to your book, Jennifer, with the cats, quote, this is a real page turned. She devoured it, says Jennifer's cats.
That's awesome. Whoever that is, thank you.
But some real questions with that.
Okay.
So first off, Mona, is Miranda named after the heroine from The Tempest? And if so, are there any Tempest Easter eggs in the book?
Yeah, yes, she is for sure. I like the idea. It says something about how she sees herself, I think, at the school. She's like kind of an innocent, and she's, having to be manipulated, and controlled by this other force, and so I really like that idea that she sees herself as a Miranda. So I gave her the name Miranda. Why not? And then in terms of Easter eggs, yeah, her boss, the dean, says to Miranda that he played Caliban, when he did some theater. And Caliban, of course, is the monster in The Tempest. So I really like the idea that, they have this kind of like offstage sort of strange dynamic between the two of them, and that's informed by the fact that he was her monster in the play. So yeah, for sure, that's
very
that's
cool.
the Easter egg there.
I love it. I love the Easter eggs. They're so, I mean, it's just like, and usually it's like, I read so fast that a lot of times I miss them. And then I love finding out about them after. It's like, oh yeah, huh? That's right, that was there. Okay, another one is, do you have any favorite Shakespeare adaptations on film?
On Yes, I do. So one that I always mention, it's television, but I think it still counts. It's Slings and Arrows, which is a Canadian TV show. Came out, I think, in like 2000-ish. Yeah. And it's so funny and so moving, so brilliant. It's set in Ontario, Canada. It's based on the Stratford Festival that Canada actually has out there. That's their big Shakespeare festival. Other plays too, and musicals. And there's 3 seasons, and each season, they focus on a different Shakespeare play. So the first one is Hamlet, the second one is Macbeth, and the third one's King Lear. And what I love about it is that, of course, the play bleeds out, into the real life of like these actors off stage, and all kinds of shenanigans happen, and it's funny, and it's so well written. And the people who wrote it are clearly actors who love Shakespeare and who just love comedy. So that show is like one of my favorite shows.
Is it stream on anything in the US? Do you know?
You can watch it on Acorn. And for anybody who likes like Mozart in the Jungle, like on stage, off stage, like shows about that kind of life, the life for actors and performers, would love it. Would totally love it. So highly recommend it. And then the other is, I forget who the name of the director is, but it's a Macbeth with Patrick Stewart.
Oh yeah.
Kate Fleetwood as Lady Macbeth, and it's incredible. And the witches in it are so terrifying. They're nurses, and it is terrifying. And it's the best Lady Macbeth I've ever seen. The best performance of Lady Macbeth. Patrick Stewart.
Rupert Gould.
Yes, Rupert Gould. That's it. Yes, and he is Macbeth, and he's wonderful, but he's a little old for Macbeth. It's the Kate Fleetwood performance that really blew me away. I loved it so much. It's so good. Super creepy.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta go look for that one.
Yeah,
Always
really
looking
good.
for something good to watch on that.
Did you see Titus with Anthony Hopkins?
No, I haven't. Is it good? I bet you it's
so good.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. It's creepy, but it's got that awesome, just the feeling. And I forget who directed that one too, but that's a good one.
Really good. Okay. Yeah.
There's lots of good adaptations out there, I think. And there's some really bad ones too, though.
There are some really
Well, isn't that true?
There's some real stinkers out there.
Yeah.
Oh, Mona, it was so great seeing you again. We need to have a monthly Zoom catch up.
Yeah, that sounds so good. Thank you both so much. Thank you, Warwicks. Thank you, everyone. I'm so honored.
Yeah.
And thank you.
All's well, paperback. Get it anywhere, but if you're so inclined, go ahead and click the link on our page and get it from us too. So
Absolutely.
all right,
So good.
Jeniffer, thank you. Mona, we'll hope to see you maybe next year.
Definitely.
All right. And maybe in person.
Bye.
Maybe we need to hopefully we can get you in person. And we'll be in a
That would be
world
awesome.
where events are happening and they're in person again. But we love this. We'll take you any way we can.
Okay.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Bye everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.